Hi and welcome back to This Bytes for You. In this video, I'm going to show you how to install an M.2 SSD into your computer. I'm going to show you not only how to install it into your motherboard, but I'm also going to show you how to install Windows 10 onto it and then how to configure your BIOS to boot off of it. Afterwards, I'm going to show you some of the differences between M.2 SSDs and regular SATA SSDs, as well as the differences between M.2 drives. So come over here real quick and let's get started. All right, so again, we're going to be installing onto the Sabrent Rocket 4.0 M.2 PCIe NVMe SSD. Now, this particular drive, and there are quite a few, it's so fast that it requires a heatsink depending on your system cooling. Now, on the particular system I'm going to be installing on, it has a heat shield over here, so I don't really need that. This is not the board that we're going to be installing Windows on, but this is just to give you an example. So right over here, you're going to notice there's a little slit right down here dividing up that slot. And then right over here on the M.2 slot itself, you're going to notice there's that same little slit right over here, little piece of plastic. So what we're going to do is we're going to align both of them up and just literally push it right in there very lightly. You don't need to push very hard. Then we're going to grab that M.2 screw and just push this down. Screw it in. And that's it. We've physically installed an M.2 SSD into your machine. Now let's go ahead and install Windows on it. All right, so before we turn the system on, first thing we're going to want to do is plug in the USB drive with Windows 10 on it. Now, if you don't know how to create this, I'll go ahead and put a link up above so you can check that video out, as well as down in the description below. Then we'll turn her on. Now, right when you turn her on, you're going to want to start tapping the delete or F2 key, whatever it is, to enter your BIOS. Okay, so once we enter the BIOS, just go ahead, click cancel here. Now your BIOS may look a little different, but the method to do everything I'm going to do is relatively similar. But of course, if you have any questions, go ahead, leave them in the comments below. I reply to all my comments. Okay, so here we're going to go over to boot. And over here, boot option number 1 is going to be generic flash disk. Now, don't be afraid if you don't see your drive there. You're not going to see it unless you already have a partition on it. It's a brand new drive. We don't have anything on it. That's what we're going to do now. Okay, so at this point, we'll just go ahead, hit F10 to save and exit because we're booting off of that thumb drive. All right, so here, select your language and your time and currency format and keyboard method and click next, install now. Okay, now, if you have a key, go ahead and enter it in here now. If you don't, this will last you for a while, so just go ahead and click I don't have a product key, but you can always put in a key later on within Windows. Okay, select which version you have. I have Windows 10 Pro. Make sure to read through all of this, incredibly important. And now click I accept the license term and next. Let's do a custom install. Okay, so now here you see the entire drive, 2 terabytes or 1.863. It's going to be different potentially on your drive. You can either do new if you want to load different partitions, or for me, I always just do next and I use the entire drive. This is going to take about 7 minutes or so. Okay, then we'll click restart now. Okay, so now that we're rebooting, let's go back into the BIOS. Okay, so now in the BIOS, we'll go over to boot. Okay, and now you'll notice there's two boot options. There's a Windows Boot Manager and then also a generic flash disk. Generic flash disk is where the thumb drive, where we have the Windows 10 install on. Windows Boot Manager is how Windows creates the partition to recognize the UEFI BIOS, and now you can boot off of that. Okay, so it was going to do that anyway, but I wanted to show you just in case in your scenario it doesn't. So we'll go ahead and hit F10 to save and exit. All right, so then here, select whatever region you're in, then click yes. Your keyboard layout, and yes. If you want to add a second one, go ahead, add layout, but I'll skip. And then 1 sec while I connect to my network. Then click next. So at this point, it's installing all of the drivers off of the network since we just connected to it. So this is the point that it's probably going to disconnect video-wise, but I'll put it on the monitor. Okay, so set up for personal use. And next. And then go ahead and enter in your information here if you'd like. But I'll do offline account. You can do whatever you like here, but I'll do limited. And then I'll just enter my name. I'm not going to enter a password, so just next. And adjust this as you'd like and accept. Not now, but if you like Cortana, go ahead and install it. Hi! Oh yeah? This might be the point the drivers disconnect. All right, so we've just not only successfully installed hardware-wise the M.2 drive, but I've also showed you how to install Windows 10 on it. But wait, there's more. If you already have a machine that has Windows 10 on it, and you want a secondary NVMe M.2 SSD as your hard drive, let me show you how to do that real quick. So before we go into setting up the secondary drive, make sure to check out this video up above so that you know how to get the most performance out of your system. Don't let Windows install the drivers automatically for you. They're not good. Okay, so come over here to File Manager. This PC. Notice we don't see that drive. This drive is the USB drive. I just took it out real quick. So now we have a separate drive. You can see it's only 500 gigs. What happened to the other one? Well, what we need to do is right click on the start button, click disk management. Then you're going to get this message. Sometimes you may not if you close it haphazardly, but if you get it, you'll just click OK to select the GPT GUID partition table. And if you don't, you'll look for it here. You may have to scroll down a little bit. Then you'll right click over here where you see that down arrow. Right click here, then click initialize disk. Then we'll have that same message we had before. Select GPT because the drive is large. Okay. Okay, so the drive still isn't there because we're unallocated. So we'll right click on this blank space underneath the black bar and click New Simple Volume. Okay, and then on the New Simple Volume wizard, click Next. If you want to partition it, you'll lower this to whatever size you want, but we'll go ahead and use the entire drive and click Next. Assign a drive letter. So whatever drive you want it to be. If you don't want it to be the next drive up, next. Then we'll give it a name so that you guys can see this pop up. Storage drive during video. And make sure to do a quick format. If not, it'll take forever and you'll want to choose all these defaults. Next, and then finish. This will only take, wow, okay. I was gonna say a few seconds, but it literally took a second. So we can close the disk management window, and I'll close this. Now coming back into File Explorer, this PC. Now we can see storage drive during video, what we named it. And here's all the space. And let's go ahead, just copy stuff there. Bam. All right. So now I've shown you how to install it as a secondary drive. So let's go ahead and discuss a few of the different types of SSDs. So this isn't an SSD. Well, but this is a SATA hard drive. These are, even if it's 10,000 RPM, they're incredibly slow because you're on a mechanical spinning disk. Now we have a SATA drive, a 2.5 inch drive. By the way, that was 3.5 inch. It is SATA as well. You can see the SATA data connector as well as the SATA power connector. Now, this was the first iteration of SSDs. Now, these ran off of a SATA cable, and that SATA cable will let you get up to 560 megabytes per second, which is pretty fast. Especially this guy will let you get about 100 megs per second. But anyway, so shortly after, or after a while this was out, then we had the first type of M.2 SSD. Notice there's two little slits back here, and I'll put it on my hand so you can see it. There's two little connectors, or two little openings right over there. That's because this is a SATA SSD. Okay, it still connects right over here, but it's a SATA SSD. Now, some of these M.2s, the originals, were pinned this way. So if you, for example, pop this guy in, you notice there's one. Because of that plastic connector, you wouldn't be able to install this. But now, as we've evolved over time, you're able to plug in the SATA NVMe SSD right into here, as well as the regular M.2 or NVMe M.2 SSD. So, for example, plug that guy right in there, and then its older brother will also plug in right over there. Now, depending on your motherboard, that may not work, so you definitely want to check out your motherboard manual just to make sure that this guy works. So the two separate keys, that's an M key. You can see just like that, there's only that one little split there. Whereas the SATA and SSD has the M key and a B key. So I just wanted to explain that to you real quick. The two different types, NVMe or not NVMe, the two different types so that you could understand how that worked. So thankfully we don't have to use these anymore. These were good back in the day, but mechanical's gone. So about 100 megs per second, it was awesome back in the day, but it would take you a few minutes to get into Windows. SSD. This would only take you about a few seconds to get into Windows, 20 seconds or whatever, but we were about 560 megs per second. Step into M.2, we were a little over 1,000 megs per second. M.2 SATA though, so we were going through the SATA bus, and then while I have it in the drive or in the machine behind me, this is another Sobrent drive, PCIe Gen 4. We're at about 3,000 plus megabytes per second. Super fast. NVMe is great, not only because it's super fast, but because it's awesome for incredibly large file formats. So video editing, opening games, loading games, all that good stuff. It's just that much faster. So I hope I can help you in this video, not only physically install the M.2 SSD, but then install Windows on it. Now, and then also as a secondary drive. Now, if you still have one of these guys, it's not bad, much better than this. But if you don't know how to install it, I'll go ahead and link up a video up above as well as down below, so you guys can check it out whenever you'd like. So let me know if this video helped you out down in the comments below. As always, please do click like and subscribe. It helps me out tremendously. And well, if you feel like this video has helped you out a ton, and if you'd like, go ahead and buy me a cup of coffee. We'll have a chat. But anyway, this is your friend Iggy with ThisBytesForYou, trying to help you out as always. Iggy out. See you guys.